In this video, I'm going to be talking with you about picking, which is obviously a very important issue to discuss when you're a beginner starting out on the guitar, but all too often it's an issue that most beginners, including myself when I started out, don't really think too much about until they've already established some habits that aren't very effective, and then at that point they more or less have to relearn how to play the guitar. So we're going to talk about ways to make sure that when you start playing you're already establishing really good picking habits, and we're also going to address both of the primary techniques with picking, both using your fingers and using one of these things, a pick, or as the British call them, plectrums. Both methods. So we're going to start out, actually, since I've already got it here, we're going to start out with the pick. This is a pick, kind of a special kind of pick. You don't see these typically in a lot of guitar stores. Usually you'll see a more standard issue kind of pick, like one of these, a little, plastic or sometimes nylon little devices. Actually, now they got these little things that you can make picks out of old credit cards. It's just kind of cool. But everybody has their own preference as to what kind of material and what thickness they like. I kind of like, I went around and around with lots of different kinds of picks before I settled on these little bitty jazz picks. Actually, one of the best kept secrets about picks is the smaller the better. You really don't want to get the big old picks, because you want as little tiny amount of pick as possible, both because most of it, and it's harder for them to be dropped if they're small, and also all you really need is just that much to get sound. All you need to do is have enough to go from one side of the string to the other. So if you are a person who uses a pick, first notice how I'm holding it. That's really important. You don't want to have too many cooks in the kitchen and hold it like that. You want to basically, most people tend to prefer their first finger and thumb, or index finger and thumb. I think Eddie Van Halen likes the middle finger and thumb. I've seen other people use this technique, and that's fine, but basically you want to hold the pick between the tip joint of your thumb and another finger. It's okay to hold it like this. Some people hold their pick like this. I hold it like that. So if you want to hold it like this, what you have to do is you have to hook your first finger like this. You see that? Then you put the pick right on top of that tip joint, and you put the tip joint of your thumb right on top of it. Bam, just like that. You don't want to hold it in a death grip, but you also don't want to hold it too loosely. You want to have just a nice, grip like you would a pencil. You don't hold a pencil like this, but you also don't let it flow too easily. You want to have a good grip on it that will allow you to move through the string without dropping it. So now that we've got the pick in our hand, I'm going to show you basically how it works. Now, this is a nylon string or a classical guitar. Typically we don't use picks on these kind of guitars, but you can. And all you want to do is put the pick on one side of the string and go down until you're on the other side of the string. That's it. You don't need any big grand movement. You don't need to move your whole hand like that. You just need to basically hold the pick and go from one side of the string to the other. And then you go the other way. Same exact thing. Just from one side of the string to the other. Real small movements. Moving from the wrist. See, I'm not moving my arm. I'm not going like this. But I'm going from the wrist. Real small. Now this is what we call alternate picking. When you go from one side of the string to the other and you're going down and up. It's very important you go down and up. You want to practice this on open strings, just on every open string. And maybe, after a while you can start, try skipping strings, maybe do 2 on each one, and then eventually, go from E to G, and maybe B to D. Make up your own exercise. It doesn't really matter as long as you're going down and up. Sometimes you might want to start with an up and go down. That's fine too. But I'd recommend that you, every day when you're just learning how to pick the guitar, if you prefer using a pick, to just spend a little bit of time every day just working on going down and up on every individual open string until you get used to that. And then you can start adding the left hand and doing other more complicated stuff, which I'm sure I'll address in later videos. Now, if you don't like using a pick, this is what you don't want to get in the habit of doing. just using your thumb. A lot of people who like using their fingers will start out just using their thumb, and unless you're Wes Montgomery, this technique is not going to take you very far, because there's only one way you can go, and there's a ceiling on how fast you can play if you're only going one direction. Same thing with a pick too. If you're using a pick and only going down, there's a limit to how fast you'll be able to play. It's like trying to run on one leg. You just can't do it. You're only going to be able to go so fast. So what you want to do with this thumb, if you're playing single notes on the guitar, is you want to plant it on the 6th string like this. Then you want to use this finger and this finger, what we call the I and the M fingers. The fingers on the right hand, just so that you know if you're not familiar with this, are lettered. P, I, M, and A is the ring finger. We don't use the pinky really to pluck with. We use it as a rasgueado strumming finger for flamenco and stuff like that. But for plucking, you have these 4 fingers. You have P for pulgar, I for indice, M for media, and A for annular. So if you're just playing single notes on the guitar, your thumb is right here, your P finger's right here, and your I and M fingers are going to do this. I'm going to try to get a better angle here. See what I'm doing here? I'm walking back and forth, and I'm doing what we call a rest stroke. Rest stroke is when you pluck the string and you come to a rest on the next string. See how I'm doing that? This would be a free stroke, the opposite of that. Let me get a better angle. In free stroke, you pluck the string and your finger comes up into air. But I'm going to go back to rest stroke, because rest strokes are a little easier, and you get a little bit more sound from them. And if you're a beginner, you're probably going to find them a lot easier than free strokes anyway. So yeah, here's a rest stroke. Practice this on every individual string, going back and forth. I am, I am, I am. I'm just walking you through this really fast, but you want to spend more time on every individual string. Maybe take the B string and spend 5 minutes one day just doing this over and over again with a consistent, even tempo, just going from one side of the string to the next. Now I'm going to back up a little so you can see my wrist here. You see where my wrist is? A lot of people will do this. Nothing really wrong with that, but I'd strongly encourage you to try this angle with your wrist, so that you're not bent like that, but you're at a neutral angle, so that you're kind of playing off the side of your finger a little bit. A lot of advantages to that. So this is a basic I and M alternate rest stroke with your right hand. And like I said, if you're playing scales or you're playing single notes, this is a really good technique. Now that doesn't mean you couldn't do, say, M and A. Some people do this. Most people either tend to prefer I and M or I and A. I see a lot of people who like this. There's even 3 fingers. You can use all three fingers back and forth if you want to. But just for starters, it's a good idea to start with I and M, and even some people like P and I. Of course, the problem with P and I is you can only do free stroke. You can't do a rest stroke with P and I, because for one thing, as you can see, I'm having to rock back and forth, and I'm resting on the E string with my thumb and resting on the G string with my I finger. So if you do P and I, it's only going to work as a free stroke technique. But like I said, I would recommend starting with I and M, and then once you get comfortable with that, experiment with some of the other combinations, I and A, M and A, or P and I, and you might over time end up favoring any number of these, and there's different pieces I play in which I use I, M, and A together, and some where I use P and I. It just depends. It depends on what the situation is and what you like. But try them all. Try them all, and like I said before, got to use consistent, even tempos. You don't want to be going at a pace that's too fast for you to actually keep a steady beat. So if I don't have my metronome with me, but if this is your beat right here, and you have a metronome, try to play along with the metronome and make sure that you're right on the beat. Then you might try, eighth notes. Maybe triplets. Doesn't matter, but start with quarter notes at a slow, even tempo and keep it even until you can slowly build up. And then, like I said, you can add your left hand later on, and there will be videos getting more in depth with this. But this is just for people who've never picked a guitar before in their lives and are trying to decide how best to do that, because people are different. Some people prefer a pick, some people prefer using their fingers. If you're going to go the classical or flamenco guitar route, it's pretty much a given that you're going to have to use your fingers. But if you're not really set on that, well, then you have more options open to you. But like I said, don't just, if you're using a pick, don't just do downstrokes, and if you're using your fingers, don't just use your thumb. That's the common defaults that everybody has. Like I said, I started out just doing downstrokes with a pick, and it took me a while to figure out that I'm not going to be able to go as fast as I would like if that's the way I do it. So please try everything, experiment. Don't get too hard on yourself. If it's hard at first, it's going to be hard, and hopefully have fun.